of stuff happened involving this franchise over the past few days. And I still feel like one more thing can happen. Just one. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Do I hear Patrik Laine? I mean, do you want me to beat around the bush with this or just throw out the biggest possible name in this possible scenario? That, of course, being that Kyle Dubas could have one more meaningful move still ahead. There is not a ton of cap space. There's not, I don't know how to say this without making it sound like the Penguins are better than they are, but there's not a ton of roster room. There's not some big gaping hole where you say that needs to be filled. That's what I intend to say. But if one weighs fairly that the current roster lost Jake Guentzel, and I'm not reevaluating the Guentzel trade. Obviously, that did not turn out well for the Hurricanes at all. But just looking at this from the standpoint of who the principal actors are here, Guentzel was lost. Riley Smith, who I really had very little use for and expected to like as a player, also was lost. So what you have are two guys who were top six wingers. One of them a very good one. And what you have in their place is Drew O'Connor, who I would think at this point everybody likes a lot, and Michael Bunting, who proved to be a really good fit for the Penguins after he came over in the Guentzel trade. He hasn't always been cast as a top six winger, but he looked like a top six winger in his time with the Penguins. And on the right side, you have Brian Rust and Rickard Rakell. And that's kind of why I brought up Laine. It's not so much about him specifically as it is a top six winger. If Dubas were able to do all of his depth diligence and acquire all of his various 5'10" left-handed smooth skating defensemen, not that there's anything wrong with them, if he could still go shop in the candy aisle, what would he come away with? I don't think there's any doubt that it would be a top six winger. Those guys tend to be very expensive. As we've already seen with some of Dubas's acquisitions, they also tend to be rebound types, bounce back hopes. Kevin Hayes, Anthony Beauvillier, guys who could be perceived as having underperformed this past season, but are still young enough or maybe healthier that it would be reasonable to expect that they could perform at closer to their career norms. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. So I could rattle off all kinds of fictional names here, or I could just bring up Laine. And I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it respectfully because he has spent the past few months addressing mental health issues. He's still not been checked out of that program, and therefore he's still property of the Blue Jackets. The Columbus management has made clear that he's going to be traded, and that because of his very significant contract, there's an understanding that there would have to be some kind of money swap. They're not interested in paying dead money. Nobody is. So I'm saying all of this to reemphasize that I don't think this is likely. It's not impossible, but it's not likely. And then there's the not-so-small factor of Laine's track record, both good and bad. Coming into the league in Winnipeg, he was unbelievable. It looked like a Rocket Richard winner, a perennial Rocket Richard winner in waiting, someone who could challenge Alexander Ovechkin for release, velocity, and everything else, in particular on the power play. He was scoring from anywhere in the attacking zone. It was stirring at the time. Things don't work out in Manitoba. The Jets move him, and he ends up in Columbus, where it seems all reclamation projects end up. It doesn't go well for him there. Occasionally he'd score, occasionally he'd look like a superstar, and occasionally he would really disappoint, including in terms of focus and effort. So what you have to do in a situation like this, if you're Dubas or really any GM who'd be talking with the Blue Jackets, in talking to your own people, is you'd have to put a big, long chart together of risk versus reward. And I can promise you that the risk side would be much higher than the reward side. Again, is it impossible that Laine could emerge from his current situation and become a superstar all over again? Yeah, it is. He's not going to forget how to shoot a hockey puck. And the moment he starts shooting a hockey puck again, he's going to be one of the 4 or 5 best in the world at doing it. And in parentheses, talk about somebody who could turn your power play around in a raging hurry. But there's a lot here. And beyond Laine, I'm not sure what other solutions would be out there. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Carmen, who asks, "It's going to be an exciting day, DK, when we see Braden Yeager make his debut as the Penguins center of the future. Any chance that happens at any point of the coming season?" Carmen, I'm going to reiterate something that I'd mentioned on yesterday's show in passing, that I don't see rookies as being blocked in this environment. I don't see Kyle Dubas bringing in all of these various 20-somethings for the purpose of blocking the kids. If the kids outperform the Anthony Beauvillier, Blake Lizotte types, and I don't know that they will, they're going to have a good chance of making this roster. Dubas and Mike Sullivan, I have never heard the latter in particular make more of an emphasis on what kind of youth the Penguins want to build with beginning right away. But as Dubas did, I thought, a really good job of explaining at the NHL draft in Las Vegas, they want the youth for the purposes of furthering their cause right now. Meaning they feel, obviously and rightly, that they've got some pretty good players still in the fold, and that those players would benefit from having more kids around, fresher legs, maybe a little bit more energy, fire, whatever. So according to them, and right now you can just take their word for it, they're not going to resist youth. In fact, they're going to embrace it. However, if you think about it, if you want the youth to actually do something other than to just be there, they've got to be better than these other players that you've just acquired. To me, that's reasonable. Where Yeager specifically is concerned, Carmen, I have a couple of thoughts on this. One is that there's so much of his game when I've watched him, notably when he's been in Pittsburgh in development camp or training camp settings. I'm not sold on the idea that he has to stay at center. He looks so much like a young Daniel Briere out there, that, of course, now being the Flyers GM, but for a long time in the league, really sharp, sniping, smooth finishing winger on his off. He was right-handed, but playing on the left side. And I just see that in this kid. He doesn't have the greatest size. To me, he still doesn't look like he has an NHL frame, but we'll see how that goes. Two is that, look at the center depth chart. We just talked about this as well this week. This kid's going to be carrying his bag into the facility in Cranberry and looking up at a depth chart that's got Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Lars Eller, Kevin Hayes, and then a whole bunch of other guys. So since he has only played center, you're not going to be asking him to switch positions a couple of weeks before camp or whatever. So that's who he's got to beat out, and good luck on that one. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these on Monday.